going to talk a little bit about the Constitution in Myanmar, which came into play in 2008. So in 2008, the military was running the country and had been for decades, essentially. And as their path to democracy, they were pushing through this new constitution. Now, they wrote this constitution, and they wrote it to make sure that they would stay in power, that they could always have a controlling stake in the country. And there's a few parts to this. So, number one, that they always control 25. They always get 25% of the seats in the parliament. They control the three of the main branches of the government. It's the Home, the Border Affairs, and the Defense. And they always get to choose one of the two vice presidents. Now, there's a couple of other things that are in there too, like a couple of things that were put in place specifically to prevent Aung San Suu Kyi, who's been the state councillor here for the last 5 years or so, to prevent her from becoming the president. So there's two things in there for that. And as well, if the kicker is that if the Constitution is ever to be changed, you need more than 75% of the votes of Parliament to agree. Now, of course, the military always has 25%, so it would mean that the military would have to vote for it, which is kind of a non-starter. Why are they going to vote out their interests? So, or vote away their interests. So in 2008, they're going to put this to a referendum, and it happens to be at the time of Cyclone Nargis. Now, Cyclone Nargis, killed tens of thousands of people in Myanmar, and wiped out hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of people's homes and livelihood. And they vote for the Constitution's right, like within a week of that, and they still had that. Now the military says, that the vote was there was a high turnout and it was all good. Nobody believes that. There was certainly plenty of vote rigging going on, evidence of vote rigging, and these sorts of discrepancies, as well as a low voter turnout. So regardless, it's been in place for years. And so this is something that's given the Myanmar military a lot of control, even as democratically elected governments have come into play, particularly in the last 5 years or so. And they've used the Constitution as a way of saying, okay, well, we need to take over because this democratically elected thing experiment is not working. Now, to further complicate things is that in the last 5 years or so, as a democratically elected government has come into play, they've wanted to change this constitution, find ways that they could change this up, and of course, and the Myanmar military does not want this to happen. One of the people who was working very, very hard on this was a man named Coup, and he worked with Aung San Suu Kyi for many, many years to try to find a way to change the Constitution. And word on the street was that he was getting pretty close, until in 2017, just a few years ago, he was assassinated just outside of the Myanmar airport, potentially setting back things quite a while. There's thought that because there might be some ways to change this constitution coming into play, that the democratically elected government run by the NLD would be pushing more and more towards that, is one of the reasons why the Myanmar military decided to take over on February 1st, 2021.